Okay, now I hope everyone can hear me. So, greetings, Father. I'll begin the reading now. And the book again is Truth Revealed, Sad-Vidya, a translation from the Tamil original of Sri Ramana. So, Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya, Sri Satguru Moji Ji Ki Jai, Sri Ananta Ji Ki Jai, Sangha Ki Jai. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, can everyone hear me now? Okay, excellent. Thank you. Okay, so I will begin. The idea of it is mainly more like reading, and then whatever comes up from the reading, then maybe we'll go further into it if it comes up. If it doesn't, then we just read on. So I will start with it starts off with a synopsis. Okay, thank you. Synopsis: Truth revealed, or Sad-Vidya. Reality is at once being and consciousness. To know that is to be that in the heart, transcending thought. Absolute surrender to the Supreme Lord, whereby the I and mine are destroyed, is the one means to realize immortality. I'll read that part again. Absolute surrender to the Supreme Lord, whereby the I and mine are destroyed, is the one means to realize immortality. I find this line very stirring, because it says, absolute surrender to the Supreme Lord, whereby the I and mine. This morning, a thought came actually that mine, if we're trying to look at something that we say is mine. Let's say I look at a watch. This thought, mine, is not a very tangible thought when you look into it. Where is mine when you look into the nature of reality itself, of experience itself? Where is mine? Mine is simply a word. I mean, what differentiates this watch, the importance in my mind for this watch as compared to some other person's watch? It's because I simply had a thought in the mind that says, this is mine. And the mine is simply a thought that, when believed in, becomes an experiential reality. But there is existentially no difference between a watch I call mine and a watch that is not mine, or a house that I call mine, or a house that I call not mine. But psychologically, experientially, I feel a difference if I sit in someone else's house, because I have the term someone else's house. So because it's someone else's house, I am not comfortable. I am not comfortable sitting, whether it might be the same sofa that I have in my house, but this is someone else's sofa. So the idea of mine versus not mine is simply a thought believed in, but it creates a huge experiential difference, no existential difference at all. So the mind is the son of I. Not I, the pure I, but I linked with the body. Once the thought, I am the body, is believed in, then the mind takes birth from that, and suddenly something belongs to this I. But the truth is, namaste, Xavier, namaste. I am so sorry if I'm very slow on catching up with the chats, and this is the first time. So many things are going on, but so we'll see how it goes up. And thank you very much for joining. Thank you. So blessed to be in this company. So I was going back to the topic of a mind. Now the thing is, if we realize that the I that we believe in, the I as the body, is not. Thank you so much, Aradhana ji. Thank you. If we believe the I is not, if we look into the nature of the I that we have seen through the satsangs with Guruji, Guru Ananta ji, and Sri Muji ji, and all the gurus that we have heard, that urge us to look within and see whether we can see this person that's identified with the body. We look and we see that there is no I. Now, if there's no I, and the I has no reality other than as consciousness itself, mine, the word mine and the concept mine is simply that, a concept. And if it's a concept, it has no reality, no existential reality whatsoever. There is no difference between the sofa in my friend's house and the sofa in my house. They're both sofas. With the word, when mine, the thought mine is removed, then we see things for what they are. But how do we remove the mind? We don't have to remove the mind. The question is, how do we remove the mind now? Suddenly, no, we have to remove the mind. We have the way to remove the mind is to see and try to find the I. Can we find the I? If we can find the I, then the mind makes sense. But if there is no I, how can the mind be real? This is the thing to look into. So I'll read that sentence again, and then we'll go to the next thing. Absolute surrender to the Supreme Lord, whereby the I and mind are destroyed. Destroyed means seen. Seen for what it is. The I doesn't have to be destroyed. It only has to be seen through. Is the one means to realize immortality. Realize that he did not say to achieve immortality. He did not say to get immortality. He says to realize immortality. You can only realize that which is there already. It's not there to achieve. It's there to realize. So this is a very beautiful thing to realize. So number one, the Supreme Being, the one ultimate cause of the universe, manifests himself as many, which do not exist apart from him. The Supreme Being, the one ultimate cause of the universe, manifests himself as many, which do not exist apart from him. So if we look at this in the context of the dreamer, which we were discussing, when we're in a dream, we see everything in the dream. We see the buildings, we see the person, we see our strangers, we see our friends, we see cars, we see houses, we see office, we see schools. Yes? We see all of this. And then we are still relating to it as other, because that's how we experience it, just like in this waking state. But when we look at it properly, all the characters in the dream, are only part of the dream, which is dreamed by you, the dreamer. But not only are those characters in the dream dreamed by the dreamer, the one that apparently sees the characters in the dream, the one that's interacting in the dream, that body that you call yours in the dream, is also created by the dreamer. And therefore, there is no difference between that one in the dream that is interacting with the dream and the dream itself. It is all coming from the one source. Without the main dreamer that created the dream, there is no dreamed one and dreamed others. This is all a part of that one that created the dream. So this is what is termed as, in that analogy is sort of to explain this, the Supreme Being, the one ultimate cause. So the cause of the dream is the dreamer that created that dream, not the character in the dream. That one is a dreamed up character. Just like this one right now talking to you is that dreamed up character. Can be seen. Nervousness can be felt. Feeling like a fool can be felt. All of these things are happening, but it can be seen. And if it can be seen, then it's not what I am. And without me seeing it, does it exist? Does nervousness exist if I'm not here to see it? Does Sukhbir sitting in front of this computer exist when I'm in deep sleep? Does any of you exist when I'm in dream sleep? Does any of this exist when I'm in dream sleep, when I'm in deep sleep? Nothing exists in that way. No thing exists. So I'm sorry if I'm just rambling on, but this is how it's coming out. Number 2, any dispute regarding the nature of manifestation can arise only so long as there is the ego. To destroy the ego and be as the self is the supreme method of attainment. Any dispute regarding the nature of manifestation can arise only so long as there is ego. To destroy the ego and be as the self is the supreme method of attainment. Since the one aim is to realize the self by destroying the ego, to engage oneself in verbal wrangling about the nature of the world is but vain. I catch myself doing this a lot also, where go around and you're arguing with people, my way is better than yours. This is happening with this. But all of that, if you look at the previous analogy, all of that's happening within the dream and doesn't affect the dreamer at all. So it's just simply a play that's happening in here, and it has nothing to do with reality whatsoever. So if we realize that, we will stop. Or we might not. But it no longer holds a fascination. It no longer holds a pull that I have to convince others of this way. Because the others and the me that's trying to convince the others, equally unreal. Equally unreal. I am as I am. To him who is one with the formless self, everything is formless. Existence of the world is merely relative to the sentient body. When we wake up, we don't really think about it, but we assume right away we wake up and we start walking. We're in our body. And the world simultaneously arises as well. The body and the world arise simultaneously, just as in the dream. In the dream, it's not that the dream came first and then your body comes later, or your body comes up and then suddenly the dream forms around you. They both come at the same time, simultaneously. So this body and this world, the body that sees the world, that apparently sees the world, is of that world. I'm not sure if this is making any sense, but the body that sees the world is of that world. This waking body cannot see your dream world. Your dreaming body is seeing your dream world. The waking body sees the waking state world. The meditative causal body sees the meditative worlds. You see? But the one that is seeing through all of it is untouched and is not in any of those bodies. So the world arises the world and the body arise at the same time. But you're neither of those. You are neither of those. You're neither of those. The world is really synonymous with the mind. Since it is knowledge that illumines the world, the former is ulterior to the latter. That knowledge is alone real, which ever remains changeless. Now we will look at what this means. When Bhagavan uses the word knowledge, many times also Sri Anantaji has explained, Guruji has explained, that knowledge does not refer to knowing something, to learning something. Knowledge is the knowledge of I am. Knowledge is the knowing that I exist. That is what they refer to as knowledge. So when they say, since it is knowledge that illumines the world, you have to be here before the world can show up. You have to be here before the world can show up. You need to be there to see the world, otherwise there's no world for you. So since it is knowledge that illumines the world, since the being comes first, you know that you are. Being and knowing are the same. It knows itself. Since the knowledge illumines the world, the knowledge alone is real. which ever remains changeless. So this knower, this knowing that you are, is changeless. Everything else changes. The content of the knowing always changes, but the knowing that you are is permanent, is not changing. The knowing that you are, it's not even a verbal knowing, it's prior to words. This knowing that you are, you don't even have to say I exist. It's already there. You see, even someone that has not learned words knows that they are. Worship under name and form is only a means to realize one's absolute identity with the nameless and the formless. This is a very beautiful verse. Worship under name and form is only a means to realize one's absolute identity with the nameless and the formless. The highest name of God is no name. The highest name of God is true name. So if we refer to the Sikh religion, let's say for example, they say the highest name of God is Satnam. Now most people think Satnam is a name of God, so they start repeating Satnam, Satnam, Satnam. But Satnam actually means truth, means existence, means being. So truth, being, and knowing are the same. So the highest name is truth, as in the actual existence of truth, not the word truth. So the highest name of God is being, is knowing and being. So this is the key. So when you worship under any name and form, you set up a deity and you worship that deity, whether it be your guru, whether it be a god, a goddess, a deity. You realize the sole purpose is basically to create such a strong trust and faith in that deity, so that you merge yourself in that deity. When you merge yourself in that deity, the I disappears. When the I disappears, this actually shouldn't be, it's not even necessary to talk about it because it's going to be all theoretical. So I'll just move past it. But the whole purpose of any kind of devotion is to dissolve yourself in that which you are worshipping. And when you have dissolved yourself in that, then what comes from that is a dissolution of I, and once the I dissolves, everything goes with it. He alone that has realized the self in the heart has known the truth. Having transcended the dualities, he is never perplexed. That alone is true knowledge, which reveals the self through inquiry. To whom pertains the interdependent pair of knowledge and ignorance? I know something, I don't know something. The content of what I know is not me. Whether I know something or I don't know something, I am as I am. The knowing of something or not knowing of something does not add anything to me, and it cannot take anything away from me. Knowledge and ignorance. When I say knowledge, in this context now, knowledge means knowing something. Because the knowledge that you are, that has to be there before any kind of knowing or ignorance is perceived. So this is the thing. Self-knowledge, in which both knowledge and phenomena fall off, is alone true knowledge, because the self is the source of all. To know all else except the knower is but ignorance. The self being knowledge absolute, the simple knowing that I am, the simple knowing that I exist, it is neither knowing nor not knowing. It can never be unknowing. It can never be not unknowing of itself. The self being one and universal knowledge of the self being one and universal Knowledge of diversity is but ignorance, which too is not apart from the self. So he's trying to show you that everything comes from the self. If you're not there to perceive anything, you're not there to perceive ignorance, you're not there to perceive knowing, you're not there to perceive the world, then there is nothing there. So that's why it is ignorance. Bhagavan says it is ignorance to believe in the world of diversity without knowing the existence that's making this world possible. On inquiry as to the nature of the I, it is found that knowledge of diversity is but ignorance, which depends on the I. The self alone then shines as the one reality. Since past and future have never been without the present, to know the eternal now is to know the truth. To talk about the past, I can only do it now. To talk about the future can only be done now. Since past and future have never been without the present. In fact, what is your past made out of? It's a memory of a moment that happened in the present. It can be a faulty memory as well of a moment that happened in the present and is stored. But even that memory has to be activated in the present, you see. So the past and the future need the present. But even prior to that, let's remove all of that. You need to exist to even look at past, present, or future. Because you are out of time. You are not in time. You perceive time. You are separate from these three, past, present, and future. The changeless, infinite self transcends time and space, which are relative to the body and mind. Time and space are only perceived in relation to the body. When you're bodiless, does space make a difference? Space is only relevant to the body because it's the body that needs to walk from this to this, or the story that needs to be created, the movement. The unchanging one, the unchanged one, the unmoved one doesn't go anywhere. It perceives space, it perceives time, but only when there is the body. It is not interested in time and space. It doesn't perceive it in deep sleep. It only perceives time and space when the body is there, whether it's the dream body or whether it's the waking state body. To the ignorant, the I is the self limited to the body. To the wise, the I is the self infinite. Guruji, Sri Muji ji, and Guruji and Anantaji have always been pointing to this in the satsang all the time, that you don't remove the I. The I cannot be removed. What you are cannot be removed. It is by their grace that these words are coming. It is not the I that needs to be removed. It is simply the I is wrongly identified. It's identified with what it sees that creates a limitation that is not there. When the I is seen for what it is, when the I is seen for what it is, that is the reality. The sage who has realized the self transcends both free will and destiny, with which only the ignorant are concerned. Free will and destiny for who? God is none other than the self. To see the self, having destroyed the ego, is to see God. All else is but a vision of the mind. The self is one and is identical with the Lord. In order to see the self or to see the Lord, the ego must get consumed and lost. Having surrendered itself to the Supreme Being, the Lord shines as the source of the mind. To turn the mind within towards that source and to abide therein steadfastly is the only way to seek the Lord. Seek within the source of the I, which cannot pertain to the body, but with which rise all other things. It cannot belong to the body. The body only comes in two states, the dream state, the waking state. So how can the I belong to the body? The body is perceived by the I, both the body, the dream body and the waking body are perceived by the I. How can the I therefore belong to the body? This is what Guruji, Sri Anantaji cleared up yesterday in the satsang for this one. The ego is a subtle bond between the unself-conscious body, big S, the body, the body cannot realize the self. So the ego is a subtle bond between the unself-conscious body. The body does not know it is the self. The body does not know it is you. The body does not know it is the self. It is you that give reality to the body. So the ego is actually the bond between this body and the absolute self-conscious reality. What you are and the insentient body, the somehow it mixes between the two. That mixing is caused by belief. The belief that I am the body makes the ego. But actually ego is God. Ego, pure, ego is the mixing between the I, that I am, and the body, what I see. So it comes up as like that. But actually ego doesn't exist. Ego is a name given to this idea that is perceived from that I. At no time has there been ego. It is a good concept to hold as well, to always think I always have ego. I might be sounding like I have ego. I might be having ego. Obviously, I need to have ego in the waking state. Satsang is for that constant clearing away from the mind of the belief in the body as the self. It's the filtering away of that until you realize that you are the self that's viewing even the concept of ego. And the concept of ego cannot be there without you. I ask everyone that's watching this or listening to this, please, if you sense any kind of anything happening here, ego, strong words, self, looking for something, please let me know. Please say something or let me know how to change it, what to correct it, whatever it is. But I simply see this as something that's happening right now. By the grace of Guruji, somehow by talking on this channel, even when you're recording, it seems like there is no way, because somehow just immediately, I don't know whether it is something about the Advaita channel or not. I'm sorry to say this, but I don't know whether it's something about the Advaita channel or not, but just knowing that this is a holy place, blessed by Sri Anantaji. It's a holy place that even when somehow something wants to take credit, it's just not happening. I'm not saying any of these things. It is Guruji's words right now that are coming out. It's this idiot does not know anything. You see, it is Guruji who is saying all of these things, using our bodies on this channel. So whether you're looking at, whether it's me that's reading, whether it's Ramji that's reading, whether it's Omji that's reading, whether it's Lizelji that's reading, whether it's any member of the Sangha that's reading, it is Guruji speaking. It is Sri Anantaji speaking. I feel that it's him speaking, not me. These words can't even come from me. So I'm shocked myself. This is a very weird thing that's happening here. This is the Guru. This is the Guru. This is the Guru. My head at your feet. My head at your feet, Sangha. My head at your feet. I'm sorry if this is. I don't know what's happening here. Where are these words coming from? I'm just meant to be reading this. Yeah. Sorry for that. The ego is a subtle bond between the unself-conscious body and the absolute self-conscious reality. The ego is verily a ghost with no form of its own, but feeding on any form it holds, which when sought for takes to flight. Since with the rise of the ego all else rises, and with its subsidence all else subsides, to destroy the ego through self-inquiry is alone true renunciation. The self-conscious being of I-lessness is that which is one's true state realized by destroying the ego through self-inquiry. The self-conscious being, self-conscious meaning conscious of being the self, is that which is one's true state realized by destroying the ego through self-inquiry. With breath and speech controlled, and with one pointed mind, one should dive deep within and reach the source, whence rises the I. To dive thus within is alone Atma Vichar, self-inquiry. Meditation on a precept concerning the nature of the I is merely an aid thereto. On reaching the heart by Atma Vichar, the one continuous self-awareness, or I, reveals itself as the perfect being, whereupon the I subsides and is lost. For one who has realized that state of perfect being, which is verily the inherent indescribable bliss of the self-absolute, nothing else remains yet to accomplish. Even as the Shrutis declare, the scriptures declare, one is and ever has been that alone. One should therefore abide as that. Instead thereof, merely to meditate on the nature of the I is a confession of one's mental weakness. Because there's a difference between abiding in that as a self and in being a someone who is doing the self-inquiry. There's a subtle distinction, I think maybe you can feel that. The subtle distinction between being the self that doesn't do anything and being a someone who is doing self-inquiry. You see? Then you should ask yourself, who is doing the self-inquiry? Who is saying I'm lost? Who is saying that I need to realize this? You can turn the one doing the self-inquiry and do a self-inquiry on that one who's doing the self-inquiry. And not think that I am the one doing the self-inquiry, you see? Because you are not the one doing the self-inquiry. You're the one watching the self-inquiry being done into yourself. The self is one, and the self-knowledge is unique in that the knowing self is itself the known self. It can never become a known or unknown object. To be as the self in the heart is supreme wisdom. All verbal wrangling about the nature and existence of the self is but the play of Maya, is but the play of delusion. Verbal wrangling about the nature of existence. Is this real? Is that real? What's happening here? Who's saying all this? Who's the one arguing? Who's the one that is arguing? Can't that one be watched? The one who's arguing is being watched. Hey, arguing is happening into the nature of existence, which would not exist if I'm not here to watch that. So what is all this happening? What am I arguing about? You know, this is holier than that, this is better than that. Who says all of these things? If I'm not there to watch it, even the holy places vanish. If I'm not there to watch it, even the holy places vanish. The places I consider the most holy, the 68 places of pilgrimage. For the Sikhs, it's the Golden Temple. If I'm not here to see it, if consciousness is not here to see it, do those holy places exist? It exists in this consciousness. And it exists, initially, all of these holy places exist as a creation of consciousness for reminding consciousness that it is consciousness. It is not meant for a worship in itself of the physical form and forgetting the person, forgetting the self. It is meant to be a reminder, initially started off created by consciousness, to be a place where consciousness can realize itself as consciousness, where you sing the hymns of the self itself, because basically when the self is realized, it is seen that it is not different than any other self that has been realized. There is no separation between someone that was we call self-realized 500 years ago and you today. It's the same consciousness. The form is different. The consciousness is same. That consciousness itself that sang those hymns, that sang those praises of the Lord, that sang those words of realization, is the same consciousness that's hearing it right now through your ears. When you read the Avaduta Gita, or the Ribu Gita, or the Ashtavakra Gita, or Sri Ramana right here, when you read these words, the consciousness spoke it. And the same consciousness that spoke these words is the same consciousness that's reading these words right now. And it's the same consciousness that then speaks it, and it's the same consciousness that then hears it. There is no difference. The body may be different, space and time may be different, but consciousness is one. Thank you, Father, for this. I'm floating in your grace right now. This is your grace. I'm floating in your grace. These words are coming by your grace. This is you speaking. To abide as the eternal self-existent reality is the Siddhi Supreme. All other Siddhis, all other supernatural powers are as unreal as a dream. To realize the self is the greatest supernatural power, if you want to call it that. Is the great spiritual gift to realize the self, obviously, because without that, nothing else exists. Without the consciousness to perceive it, without that, who is there to perceive the siddhis, even? The sage awake to the self is never concerned with them. That's why they're never concerned with them, because they realize I have to be here for those to be. I can levitate, but then I have to be here to see the levitation. I can make things appear, but I have to be there to make it appear. If I'm not there, then these things don't appear. So what is greater? And why should I remove myself from being myself? Why should I pay attention or let my focus go away from myself into something lesser that cannot exist without my existence? Why should I move from this and play into that? If it happens, it happens. But I can remain in this, you see. Since one is ever the supreme reality and nothing else, it is superfluous to affirm it in thought or by speech. Such affirmation can be an aid only to rid oneself of the notion, I am the physical body. You are always that, you've always been that. This line says, since one is ever the supreme reality and nothing else, it is superfluous to affirm it in thought or by speech. To keep on saying, I am the self, 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 is to convince yourself, I'm the ego, I'm the ego, I'm the ego, I'm the ego, I'm the ego. The self doesn't have to convince itself that it is the self. The one that's saying, I'm the self, I'm the self, I'm the self, I'm the self, is not the self. The self is the one that watches the one saying, I'm the self, I'm the self, I'm the self, I'm the self. So it's not necessary. But such affirmation can be an aid only to rid oneself of the notion, I am the physical body. So whenever you think you're the body, whenever you have a thought, you ask, to whom is it coming? To whom is this thought arising? Who is it coming for? Then you inquire into that. You know, to keep on saying I'm the self, I'm the self, I'm the self is to keep on trying to convince yourself you're not. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but that is what's coming out here right now. Advaita, non-duality or not two. Being the supreme truth, it cannot become contrary to itself during sadhana. This is referring to the previous, where to say I am the self, you have to be two. You have to be the one saying it as a sadhana, someone who's doing the practice, someone who's doing a spiritual practice, someone who is doing the spiritual practice to be the self. There's two. But this path is called non-duality, not two. There's only one. So if there's only one, who is going to be doing the spiritual practices to become one? The basis of someone doing a spiritual practice to become one is duality. So a dualistic practice cannot make you what you already are. So it's basically operating on two different levels, what Father would call level confusion. You know, the ego can never be the self, and the self has never been the ego. The ego trying to become the self is level confusion. If one considers oneself as karta, the doer, one has to reap also the fruits of threefold karma. When the ego is destroyed through self-inquiry, there is neither the karta, the doer, nor the threefold karma. The ever-present state of liberation alone remains. The notions of bondage and liberation are correlative and coexistent. On inquiry, who is bound, the notion of bondage vanishes, and so does that of liberation. When the one who believes he is bound is not found, the quest for liberation is over. Because liberation is simply a term given to the search for that which already is, and therefore liberation is, as a concept, is no longer given importance. It simply becomes a concept. Because if there has been no bondage, what can the word liberation be other than a concept that is appearing in what you are? The already free, the one in which even the concepts of liberation and bondage appear, can that be bound? Can that be liberated? On inquiry, who is bound? The notion of bondage vanishes, and so does that of liberation. The one eternally free alone remains self-revealed. Questions regarding the nature of liberation can arise only so long as there is individuality. Questions regarding the nature of liberation can arise only so long as there is individuality, because as long as there's someone who wants to get liberated, these questions regarding the nature of liberation will come. How do I get liberated? What path do I need to follow? What is happening? And then the Guruji brings one chop and says, who's looking for liberation? The Guruji brings one chop of the head. Who's looking for liberation? Who is bound? Show me the one who is bound. I will liberate that one. When you look to see now who's bound, who's asking about liberation, who's bound. I mean, if all of you want to do it right now, you can do it right now. I have a feeling to ask you, just go, who is bound? Who is bound in here? Right now, who's bound? The one who wants to be liberated. Where is that one? Where in this one is that one that wants to be liberated? Can you point it out? Where is the one that wants to be liberated? Because all that is seen here right now is the one that is watching everything, is the beingness itself. And the beingness itself is not asking about needing to be liberated. The beingness itself is not looking to be liberated, is not worried about being bound. So questions regarding the nature of liberation can arise only so long as there is individuality. Dissolution of this individuality is alone true liberation, eternally attained. This is the key. Dissolution of individuality is alone true liberation, eternally attained. A liberation has already been eternally attained. It is not an attainment to be gotten. It is already attained. It is simply to be realized, recognized. Recognized how? Through inquiry to seeing who is the one who is, what is that which, without which none of this is there. And what am I in relation to that without which none of this can be there? So this is where I'm reading to at the moment. By Guruji's grace, whatever has come out, it's all Guruji's grace. It's also Anantaji's grace. This is the grace of his satsang. He makes us broadcast. Then he himself pervades the entire space and does satsang through us. And there is no way that this one here can take the credit for anything that's happened or anything that's been said. There's no taking credit for what has been said. There's no taking blame for what has been said either. I mean, there are people who say all the credit goes to the Guru and all the blame goes to me in order to be humble. But what is experienced here right now is there is no credit, no blame here. It is simply what happens spontaneously by Guruji's grace. It is grace alone. Grace says these words. Grace allows this to work. It's all grace, and grace doesn't end the minute this broadcast stops. Grace is there right now, watching this. In this, when broadcast stops, grace is with you right now. In whatever activity you'll be doing once this broadcast stops, it is there continuously. And I'd like to thank Guruji for this great blessing. Thank you for bringing me to this family. Thank you for bringing me home. And thank the entire Sangha. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya, Satguru Sri Muji Ji ki Jai, Sri Ananta Ji ki Jai, Sangha ki Jai, Jai, Jai. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for everything. Thank you. Thank you. I really, really love you. Thank you.